Hello and welcome to PhDear Diary. My name is Andy Salkeld and this is my video blog during my time undertaking a PhD at Leeds Beckett University. We're around week 21, 22, can't quite remember, but we're definitely well underway now. And this week has actually been a very big kind of step forward in a lot of things. So I want to talk about some of those things that have happened, which has been really good. So last week and last weekend was quite quiet, really. Didn't really get much. Saw some family, saw some friends, but broadly just kind of chilled. I think I mentioned at the time I'd been playing Elden Ring, and I managed to finish that, which was great. I have started slowly into New Game Plus, which is just carrying on with the same character, but everything gets a little bit harder. So that's been quite nice. And that was kind of where I was last week. And then this week, I really wanted to push myself to get more done because I had some really important meetings that were coming up. So firstly, I had a meeting with a potential second supervisor. So typically on a PhD, you have your director of studies, who is the kind of staff member who is responsible for kind of making sure it happens, directing where you should look, what you should do, how things should happen, etc., etc. Just the person responsible. Using the terms that I'm looking at, that's about the accountability. And then you often have a supervisor or a second supervisor, basically another staff member that does similar things but doesn't have the ultimate responsibility involved. Basically provides some kind of external feedback, counsel, just another voice and things like that, because ultimately when one person, two people, any number of people work on something so closely, they can get too close, and having different perspectives or other perspectives can be a huge boon to a lot of these things. So I had a meeting with a potential second supervisor, Dr. Jim Morgan, and I believe I mentioned it last week. And I'm not normally nervous about these things, but I was apprehensive. So I can't remember if I told the story, but when I was doing my master's conversion, I wanted to do a project into mental illness stigma within professional services. And Jim was someone who stood out to me as someone I'd like to work with. Don't worry, this is a toy for Pika that has just kicked off. She is asleep in a box down here, or was sleeping in a box. Now she's like, toy, I'm on this. And yeah, and Jim just politely declined, saying it wasn't something for him. So I was going into this meeting very much just like, oh, I wonder if he's just going to decline again. You know, like, you set expectations, and what I am doing is not kind of, I'm not going to say not standard, but I'm looking at things from a financial perspective as well as a psychological perspective. And hence, not necessarily everyone within psychology will understand the finance. And so I kind of knew I was going to have to do some explanation, some defense of my intention, etc. And so I had that meeting on Tuesday. Went in, had the conversation, went very well. Talked about some of the things that I find interesting, and ultimately, long story short, Jim agreed to supervise me, which is fantastic. It was someone I wanted to work with, and who has the experience that I really value, etc. So that's going to be a really nice addition to the team. But he was saying that rarely in these meetings do you come away with them immediately thinking of 3, 5, 6, 10 different studies you could run that would all be fascinating, and that would be easy to write, easy to publish, easy to get out, etc. And yeah, we basically just spoke about the topic and how far-reaching organisational finance is within businesses, because it literally touches every part of the business and so on. And that was a really it was a really solid, like, yes, things have moved forward. And for me personally, I was nervous about it to some extent because it's red tape, it's admin, it's kind of unnecessary to the bits that I care about, but it is important for a university standpoint, etc. But from a pure, this is what I want to research, this is how I want to research, I could have done my tasks with or without Jim's input. Having his input is much better, but the necessity is more for the university and the kind of ethics, the supervision, the kind of oversight, etc., etc. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad to have someone else involved. But at the same point, I kind of came into this knowing what I wanted to do, or at least I refined it over 4 months into something that I know exactly what I want to do, and I just want to do it now. I don't need to broaden my horizons yet. I just want to crack on, do my studies, and get on with them, basically. So that was really good, really positive. Great to have Jim on board. Look forward to working with him, maybe doing some smaller studies to contribute to what I'm doing as well. But we'll figure that out. For now, we just need to kind of get on with everything. Had a good supervision with Chanky, and we kind of talked about the next steps, what's going to happen. Both of us were feeling really ill on Tuesday. Turns out, the reason I was feeling ill is I accidentally doubled my medication that night, which is dangerous. So so rather than taking one lot of Circadin, I took 2. So I was incredibly drowsy the next day because I just hadn't woken up. So did all of those things. I have got my online questionnaire finalized now. We've updated the questions with the comments that Chanky provided, updated the vignettes to now kind of not have coloured backgrounds, and also to have emboldened words to kind of further emphasize the cultural parts of the descriptions so that people are aware of the important differentiators. And I added in some attention checks into the questions because those are what I realized was actually there are a lot of questions, and if I'm going to be paying someone to be doing these questions, I don't want them to just be clicking through and wasting time for both of us. So I've added more kind of fail cases, where it's like, if they don't do this, we don't include them. If they don't do this, we don't include them. So that's kind of where I got with that. That's finalized this week. I've written up the majority of my ethics document. The only part of ethics that I need to do now is the methodology. So this is where I need to write up how many people we're going to recruit, how we're going to recruit them, what the experimental conditions are, what the tests are, etc., etc. So whilst it's a lot of writing, it is also incredibly important. Writing it now will help me with it later on when I come to write other aspects of my PhD, because obviously we have to write up all these studies in the thesis at the end. So I think that's just one of those, like, right, I'm going to put a lot of work into this now, but it will make things a lot easier later on, etc. So did that. So that's kind of where I'm working today, over the weekend and Monday, ahead of my supervision next week. Kind of just say, right, I want to get the ethics document done as quickly as I can, because I want to get it submitted sooner rather than later. And the reason is because of my Wednesday meeting, where I met with one of my good and now old friends, Chris Etherington. I met him at PwC, but now he is a partner at RSM, and I find it fascinating to see how people's kind of career trajectories diverge and move and everything like that, and how some people end up in one place, others end up in another. I obviously have had the kind of clusterfuck of a life that I've had, and anyway, we've kind of got to this position, and I was talking to Chris about my PhD and the intentions, what I'm wanting to do, why it's interesting, why it's relevant to accountants, and whether there's ways to work together. And Chris was saying, actually, yeah, this sounds really interesting. It sounds like something that we could offer to clients, and it sounds like something that our clients would be interested in, because it's such an important topic right now, and ultimately from a pure like marketing and sales perspective, it creates another touch point. It creates a lot of content that can be kind of processed through repeatedly to just be like, right, well, now we've looked at large business, small business, this business, that business, and we start really analysing how finance is affecting people at an individual level. So look at finance directors, how are they experiencing things differently? Look at members of the finance team, look at accountants from anywhere within the business. So Chris was saying, like he actually like astutely said, can you sell this? And I was like, of course I can sell it, but now isn't the time to sell it, because what I'm looking for right now is to prove that the idea works, and to prove that there is a causal chain between how organizations are financed and how the finance team operates and individual level outcomes. Because if I can show that there is even a remote part or a remote connection between those, and a remote causality, then suddenly you can start looking at interventions to improve it. You can look at ways to make things better, or ways to mitigate. So you could look at organizational change. So this would be where a consulting team goes in and says, right, we've seen these parts of your culture, of your climate, of your leadership, and now here's what we would suggest to improve them. But equally, you can have psychologists go in and say, well, your people are experiencing burnout and stress and X and Y, and do individual responses and so on. I'm about to sneeze, I think, so just warning. And it's gone, just as I mentioned that. That's great. But yeah, so the two aspects of my personality in both the kind of advisor consultant position and also the supporting individuals and psychological intervention aspect, both of those become very real, and I know both of them, and I'm one of only 2 people in the UK that is qualified in both, so that's pretty special. But what I said to Chris very, very clearly was, look, for me, where I am now, this is about gathering data. The more data I have, the more realistic the kind of future of this becomes, and so on. And he understood it and said, right, well, what we're going to look to do, or what he's going to look to do, try and get me in front of the partner board in RSM to talk about my ideas, talk about the kind of theory, what I'm doing, the questionnaires, and everything like that. He's also said that he's going to help kind of with a couple of other things that I've got going on, so Discover and then some family stuff. And that's brilliant. Like, I have a really, well, what I consider to be a really good relationship with Chris Etherington. If anyone listens to this, I would highly recommend working with him. If you ever need personal tax support in any regards, he's just a fantastic individual. But yeah, so having that conversation with Chris, I'm really motivated to get all these things done, move forward as quickly as I can, because having that kind of workload, etc., having that kind of like, yeah, we'll put you in front of our clients, is massive. And I don't want it to kind of fall off as things take longer, etc. So I want to get my ethical approval through as quickly as possible. So that's why I've worked to get the ethics document done this week outside of the methodology. I'm going to get that written up today over the weekend and Monday, then hopefully have that with my supervisors by the end of next week so that they can review it, and then middle of July submit it, and then kind of just have it, then spend a couple of weeks doing open science framework. So this is kind of a science initiative where everyone kind of pre-registers their experiments, shares anonymized data or anonymized information publicly so that people can reperform, retest, reanalyze, to basically corroborate and validate all your findings, etc. So that's kind of my plan. My understanding, because everyone keeps saying this, is the whole university closes down in August. No one is going to be working during August. So my basic plan is get everything done before August, and then during August I shall have a break myself as well, and then kind of come back thereafter, hopefully with ethical approval, and just have it out and ready to be in people's hands, etc. And then do all the work over the last quarter of the year, or third of the year, September, October, November, December, to then basically say, right, let's gather this data, let's do case studies, let's see where the differences are, and then just go from there. Because I can have a load of data, like a load of this data done and ready by the start of January, then I can just start analyzing, and I can have 3 to 6 months of doing data and doing case studies, looking at the actual information, or producing the actual information. And then next year, I do exactly the same thing again, but looking at leadership alongside it. And we get more and more data points and data sources. And maybe change some of the questions so that they're more appropriate, etc. But also add qualitative. So some of the case studies come back very interesting. Ask if we can do interviews within that institution, that organisation, to then figure things out. So that's kind of the plan, and I'm kind of happy with it. Like, things are moving forward at a reasonable pace. I'm excited about this. If you compare what is going on now in just these frames of reference, so when someone comes to analyze all of these in many years' time, like the impact of a PhD on someone, look at how more energized I am about my topic now. Now that there is a clear plan, a clear structure, a clear definition, compared to at the beginning where I was uncertain. I was thinking of cool things but didn't really know how it all fit together, and how back then I was very much finding my way, whereas now I've found it and it's like, right, let's go. And that's something to be said, like, PhDs are a journey, they're not a destination. Lots of people look at them and say, oh, well, actually, it's a qualification at the end, and it's just about the qualification. It isn't. It's about learning and growing and having that experience along the way. And I've now had the kind of learning and finding my way bit. I've done a lot of this in previous lives and previous jobs, so I kind of understood that. But now it's very much right. Well, let's just go. Let's get this done, and let's start getting some data. And that's where we are. This weekend is this weekend's pretty good. So my best friend Toby is coming over this afternoon, and we are just having some board game time, going to a pub. And basically, I try to organise this like once a quarter where he can get out from looking after the kids. I mean, he's one of the best dads I know. And he is like, he's such a caring and honest and kind and thoughtful dad, but he gives himself selflessly to his children and to his family, which is incredible. But he also doesn't look after himself and doesn't protect himself. So I do what I can to protect him from being overwhelmed that way. Give him the kind of geeky outlays and stuff like that that sometimes you need. So doing that. Tomorrow, some friends are coming around and we're going to play a game of 40k in the morning. New balance patches out. Sisters, My Army, Adepta Sororitas look incredible. I am excited to play them, but I am also very much of the opinion that, yikes, I am going to be playing Sisters and I am the bad guy now. I am the elephant in the room, or whatever, however you want to put it. Like, everyone is going to be gunning for my army, which is bad. But hey, that's just what it is. I've been playing the faction for years, it is years now. You ride the ups and the downs, you figure it out. And then the evening, I'm going over to see my friend Becky in York, and we are going to watch the last 2 episodes of Stranger Things Season 4. They come out today. I'm desperately going to avoid all spoilers on the internet today and tomorrow, because we're doing a kind of just videos, pizzas, like 80s snacks, stuff like that, just because Stranger Things, ain't it? So yeah, and then Sunday will be a day of rest. It'll be a day of laundry. It'll be a day of kind of sorting out stuff here, and I will probably end up painting another 10 Zephyrim, or at least starting the process of painting another 10 Zephyrim, because I just want to run another unit of them. Drop my Seraphim, just run Zephyrim instead. And yeah, that's kind of where my life is right now. It's actually good. It's very busy. There's lots of things going on, and I'm excited about it. But I started with a personal trainer a week ago, and I am feeling like I am not visibly seeing benefit, but I'm feeling benefit. I feel like I have worked certain muscle groups that I haven't used in a long time, etc. So yeah, I'm good with all of this. I am happy in life and in work, and that is something that you can lose so quickly, and it can be near impossible to regain. So I want to take a moment to at least kind of savor it and say, you know what, this is a good point. It will probably get worse, but this is a good point, and we should recognize those things in our lives. So anyway, this has been PhDear Diary. I've been Andy Salkeld. Thank you very much for listening, and I will be back next week. Speak to you soon.